Hello, everybody. I am excited to be here back at the JVMT podcast. I am more excited because we have an incredible man who's part of our team over here at JVMT. And let me just go ahead and introduce him. But hey, Sylvester, how are you?
What's happening? What's happening? How are you?
Perfect. How's the weather over there in San Diego?
It's amazing. I can't complain. It's not too hot. It's not too cold. Sorry, Mike. It is absolutely beautiful. The sun is shining. The wind is going through my hair. My hair is in the wind. If I had it, but that's
I love the dramatics, which is why I always ask you. Well, I just want to get started with introducing Mike Simmons. And so Mike helps businesses and leaders and founders find clarity, stop second guessing the work they do. Man, that's so needed. And take the next logical step. He has worked with high growth tech companies for over the past 22 years as an individual contributor and leader. He's also a coach, an enabler, and a leader who knows that the legacy is built through developing better leaders. His work is built as a combination of processes and frameworks and methods, all of the stuff that a lot of us don't want to deal with, and applied thinking. Mike has worked as UPS, SmartForce, O'Reilly Media, and with clients such as Intel, Microsoft, MIT, Walt Disney, Full Sail University, and a number of early stage startups. As you can see, Mike, you've done an incredible job of basically not only putting a name for yourself, but generally helping people all over the world. And you've had, incredible businesses that you've worked with. So I'm gonna pass it over to Sylvester, but I just wanted to say and commend you. I'm so excited that you're part of our team, and most importantly, we have here the visionary Sylvester, right? He's like the leader. We have the executor, and then we have here Mike that puts it all together in a nice, beautiful bow in a nutshell. So thank you for making it today, and Sylvester, it's all yours.
okay. Mike, again, thanks for having me. I know last time we were here, we got to meet Crystal and what she does and who she is, and I'm just so glad to have you on our team at an executive level because it's a part that we're missing, to be honest with you, that we really, really need it. And to have somebody of your caliber, experience, background, and education to work with is just phenomenal for us. And Mike, you and I met actually in a cohort with the Better Business Bureau, right?
That's right. Yep. Yeah, I was speaking at the event. You were in the cohort, and we were talking about sales and execution and that kind of stuff.
Yeah. We talk about sales and execution, so that was really cool. I still have my notes, and we're still executing those.
That's good.
So your work, what you do, does work.
Thank you.
We can say that as a company that's received that information. But I wanted to ask you just a couple of questions. Like, so, I know it's 22 years plus, but before that, before you started being Mike, who we know as Mike, what were you doing before that? What did you do before that?
When I see 22 years, it makes me feel really, really old. Yeah. So I feel like I just keep getting older and older. So kind of a journey perspective, I was born in New York and lived out on Long Island for a number of years. And then we moved to New Jersey when I was in junior high school. I grew up playing ice hockey and soccer. And then my spring break freshman year in high school, we moved from Wayne, New Jersey to Laguna Hills, California. And that was a bit of a culture shock. It went from being up in the Northeast to being on the West Coast in one of the most beautiful places in the world. So just a little bit north of you, down in San Diego, we were up in Laguna and traded in ice skates for football cleats. And it was just a really cool and different experience. What was funny about it when I moved out is my friends said, don't, or make sure you eat all the hamburgers that you can because they don't eat meat. out in California, and the best hamburger place in the world is based out in Southern California, and that's In-N-Out. For anybody who has a doubt, In-N-Out is what a hamburger is all about.
You know, we when I was living in Texas, just real quick, we had an In-N-Out a few years ago, the first one, and there was lines around this place.
Yep.
And nobody had known about it because I had traveled to California a few times before I knew about it.
Yep.
And so I knew about the menu and all that kind of stuff. But anyway, go ahead.
So it's just, I mean, an awesome place, great part of the culture in Southern California. So I got to look at it. I've got the best of both worlds, kind of the intensity of being born and raised out on the East Coast, and then a little bit more of a laid back, smoother edges growing up and going to high school on the West Coast. I'm a Sun Devil, and I worked while I was going through school, and that's really where I got into UPS. So that's me in a nutshell. Oldest of 7 kids. I've got a lot of brothers and sisters, and yeah, that is me.
Okay. And so
much makes sense. I gotta say this. When I first met Mike and Sylvester introduced me to him, and we got on this incredible meeting, I was like, he's the chillest person I've ever met in sales. And
it is you know, if we were talking 10 years ago, I don't know that people would describe me as the chillest person in sales because there was an intensity about how I would go about the work and how I would lead people. Actually, when I was at UPS, I had a manager who gave me a book called Managing from the Heart. Managing from the Heart. And I forget what the acronym stands for, but it's something like hear and understand me. Even if I'm wrong, don't make me wrong, or something like that. And anyhow, the reason she gave me the book is because I had a member of my team who was a part-time supervisor who left the operation crying because of the intensity for which I was managing that operation. So I was a bit of a jerk, and over time, the edges start to get smoothed out, and you realize, you know what? It's not about the process. It's not about the intensity. It's not about the doing it this way. It's about the thinking and the frameworks and the tools and the things that you can give people so that they can do the work that they want to do in the way that makes sense for them to do the work. And everybody's going to take a different perspective when they do this. And that perspective is going to allow us to be innovative, creative, and anyhow, so Crystal, that's cool to hear. And I think I've definitely chilled out and am a little bit more laid back now than I was about 10 or 15 years ago.
Well, you know, and the cool thing about this particular story, Mike, is that it was real. You were honest, and you said, listen, you know, 10 years back, you would have not liked me because of the way that I worked and operate. Sylvester tells me the same thing. He goes, if you would have met me 10 years ago, you and I would not be able to be working together. And I go, I wasn't even born. But but the moral of the story is that sometimes life has ways to show us a different way of still executing the manner that we need to execute, but in a less intensity, right? And I'm glad that you're able to find that out.
Yeah. Well, I want to ask you a couple other questions too, Mike.
Sure.
So you worked for a couple companies, learned some things, and then when did you start to become Mike, the Mike we know? Like, when did you start your own company? What made you want to do that? Was there some education you got that put you in that situation, or what happened?
Yeah, I think I'm still working on being me. Like, I don't know that I've really found out who I am completely. And I think that's the cool part of taking a beginner's mind approach to looking at things, and taking Barry Diller talks about this in when he describes things like infinite learning, continuous learning, infinite learning, beginner's mind. So I don't know that I'm really where I'm going to be, but as far as where I am right now and how I got here, I'd always wanted to launch a business. I had no idea what it was going to be. And Seth Godin would have called me a wantrepreneur. So I wasn't an entrepreneur. I was a wantrepreneur, and I wanted to start something, and I didn't know what it was going to be. And I had a mentor when I first got into an account executive role, who his guidance was that you manage your territory in the same way that you would manage a franchise. So as a sales professional, you end up being an entrepreneur inside an organization. And these days they would call that an intrapreneur. So you have this intrapreneurial mindset for people who take the sales profession seriously, in the way that they operate, the way that they manage time, the way that they manage resources, the way that they engage with others, the way that they engage with their customers. So I was a wantrepreneur, didn't know what I wanted to do, didn't know what that thing was going to be. And then we went through, when I was at O'Reilly, we were a joint venture between two companies, Pearson and O'Reilly, and Pearson divested their stake. We became a wholly owned subsidiary of O'Reilly. There were some changes that happened inside the business. Me and co-founder of Catalyst got together and said, he knew that I wanted to do something like this. He was ready to make a change. So we decided to build out a consulting practice. And fast forward 6 years later, still keep figuring out components of it. And the business has gone through a couple of different iterations. Former co-founder Mike exited the business. He joined one of our clients, still in really, he's a good friend. We're in close contact with each other today. And he's made some introductions to clients that I work with. So all really good stuff. But this evolution of wanting to start something, not really knowing what it was going to be, taking the leap, and then over time figuring out, holy crap, we have no idea how to operate a business effectively. And we made mistakes from a payroll perspective, and we were subsidizing good contracts with bad contracts. So you learn all of these lessons by scraping your knees and going through the work and saying, hey, you know what? I won't do that again. Some of them seem obvious once you learn the lesson. However, you still got to learn. And whether you learn by engaging with others and taking on their experience and their advice and their guidance and hearing their stories and start putting that into practice, which is a really fast way to learn, or you learn by making the mistakes on your own, which can also be fast and stick a lot longer, but it's going to be really painful. Some of those lessons that you learn from others, hearing other people talk about it, it takes a couple of times before it finally sticks. When you are doing it and putting in the work, you can learn pretty quick that you don't want to touch a hot stove.
That's a big piece. It's funny. I had a mentor, a multimillionaire, who told me, ready, fire, aim is backwards, right? Yeah. And so what I learned from that is, if you're teaching me something, for example, how to fire a gun, let me fire it. Let me just go ahead and fire it.
Yep.
Because what you can do now that, since you're seasoned, you know what you're doing, you can look at me and go, oh, his problem is he doesn't know what that cross thing is, or he's not holding the butt of the gun right, or he's on the wrong side. He should be on this side and not that side, whatever. But you can see it and identify very quickly and say, boom, Sylvester, here's what you need to do. Now, I could do it myself 100 times and probably never figure it out. Yeah. Right. So it seems like you apply that same principle to when you're coaching people.
You're highlighting that significant difference between two things that I think get confused, which is that mentoring and coaching. So, coaching is about that observation, the being able to put, if we're looking at footwork on a football field, being able to get your feet in the right position to have the right amount of leverage, things that you're not going to see or may not feel when you're out there in the moment, but somebody else, the eye in the sky, doesn't lie. The observation from a coach is this is what they're looking for, those nuanced technical things to help you get better at feel. And the challenge that we all run into, and it happens, it doesn't matter how much experience you have in business, it will continue to happen. You will create your own personal blind spots. And if you don't pause to ask certain questions periodically, those blind spots will get bigger and bigger and bigger. And many times you need someone to help you pause because you're so in the moment, so working through it. You're working really hard because you want to get these things done. And you need somebody to just kind of tap you on the shoulder and say, what about this?
Mhm.
Or why are you doing that? Or what would happen if you tried this? Or how might this work? Those questions, simple who, what, why, where, when, how type questions, can change the world.
Yeah, yeah. You reminded me of a Simon Sinek, Start with Why
Yeah.
book, which was an amazing book, that sort of talked about even some competitors and how these companies won and another
Right.
company should have won because it was their industry and so on and
Yep.
so forth. But the companies that start with why am I doing this tend to have more success, and sort of having that mentoring and coaching helps people, because I know that you took us through some exercises that made us think about why we were doing what we were doing,
Yeah.
if I recall from the
Yep.
class. Let me ask you a couple other questions. As we've because I mean we kind of got to know each other, like we've been knowing each other forever. Like we don't even have to talk to each other, and the next thing you know, hey, what's up, Mike? What's going on? It's really cool. I mean, between the three of us, it's just like a
Yep.
very cool and cohesive thing. What is it that attracted you to what we're doing, that you thought this was worth your time?
Yeah. Well, I think as we've gone through and we've had a couple of discussions, we did the clubhouse thing and we
Hmm.
did some things
Hmm.
beforehand. And we looked at it and we said, hey, there's got to be a way for us to work with each other. We'll find something there. And I think the reason why we're able to pick it up, no matter how much time and space is between the conversation, is because we bring our, this is going to sound really fluffy, but we bring our true selves to the conversation. This is not, there's no, um, the manufacturing of circumstances.
Hmm.
There's a genuine interest in learning. There's a genuine interest in helping people be better, do better. There's a genuine interest in helping people avoid some of the pitfalls that they can run into when they go through and they develop an app without context, or they develop a program without understanding the components of the marketing, how you're going to go to market and get feedback. They develop something without actually going through and considering the importance of business acumen as it relates to decisions that they're going to make as they go to market. And I think as we've come together and have talked through a couple of these things, there are gaps that I can help address, that you and Crystal have in your relationship, and there are gaps that I have that you guys address in your capabilities. So I think there's I know it's an overused word from the 80s and 90s, but there's some synergy that happens, whereas
Hmm.
you add this compounding effect. 1+1 is more than 2
Hmm.
when we come together, and that I've seen too many organizations, too many leaders inside companies who have a really good idea and are really committed to the idea and they want to build around the idea, but they haven't gone through to say, how do I actually validate with customers, and how do I actually go through the process to make sure that people care about this thing and that I'm solving for a problem that is important to solve for in the marketplace, rather than something that maybe is important to me but isn't, that nobody else really cares about. And I firmly believe that we can break through those challenges by asking questions in the marketplace, not going out there looking for validation, but asking questions to gain better understanding of the needs from the perspective of the customer. So that was a long answer, but that's
No,
what I think.
but like you said, you come as your authentic self, which we love. And so, because with the map, that's the whole idea, and that came from trial and error, right? That came
Yeah.
from sort of watching the market. 99% of apps are failing, and we were making money building apps, but our clients weren't necessarily in a position to reap the rewards.
Right.
And I think something that you said, and for me it was more of a moral issue, to be honest with you, but also a business opportunity, was, wait a minute, if I know this problem exists, do I feel good about continuing to perpetuate it?
Right.
Is the money worth it? And of course, for me, the answer is always no. The money's never worth it if people are hurting,
Right.
and they don't know. It's like your doctor not telling you certain things because he or she isn't going to get paid this much money if they tell you, oh, all you got to do is eat an apple. You don't have to spend $2,000 a month on drugs. Just eat an apple every day and you'll be fine. And so for me, it became that, and then I knew what was missing. And now it became, okay, how do I put all those components? Because I can't do all of those things. How do I put all those components together? And
Yeah.
I think honestly, what happened with us is, the best place to start is at the beginning. And I started by myself, and it was crazy. And then people started going on. I met Crystal, I met you. She has her team. I met my team, and I met clients who also gave me information. And so I think, and then I had a business coach who was also giving me information, which helped lead to the MAP program. And I think, so let me ask you this: what do you think about that? I walked through that journey. Yes, we can build a map. We can do all those other kind of things for you. But part of it is just doing it, like not second guessing the idea of, should I do a map? It's like, well, just do it.
Yeah.
I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. Well, I think there's a lot of challenge. I don't know who said this first, and there are probably a number of people who've said it many times, but it's the whole idea of ideas are crap, execution is where it's at. And like there's this thing, like we have these things we want to do. We want to have a great relationship with our family. We want to have 6-pack abs. We want to have live a long, healthy
I just want
life.
an ab. I just want one ab. If I
just one ab. Yeah, I'm working on I'm at like party ball territory. I'm a little concerned that I'm going to get toward keg, but like party ball, let's work our way backwards. But so we've got these things that we want to do, and we know what it looks like to get to the top of Everest, and we've got this objective that we want to get to, but we forget that everything happens one step at a time, and we don't design for those next logical steps, that incremental step. Like and this goes into another, what is it, Chinese proverb, the journey of 10,000 steps begins with one step, or 10,000 miles begins with, I guess if it was Chinese, it'd be 10,000 kilometers, but the journey of 10,000 steps starts with one step. I can't do the 9,999th step if I didn't take the first step. And too often we think about that Z rather than just getting from A to B. And this is where you get into some of the models that I've got up on the board, and some of the stuff that I'll do with organizations, what we did with the Empower group. You whiteboard out and you start to say, okay, here's where we are in the current state. Here's where we are in the desired state. We understand the gap between those two. What are some of the waypoints, the incremental stages that we can get through to help make progress and make sure we're moving in the right direction? Because if I'm going to drive from San Diego out to Phoenix and I find myself in LA, something has gone horribly wrong. I've made a wrong turn someplace. Now I could go up north through Laguna Hills and Riverside and work my way across the 10, or I can go straight up 8 and work my way through Gila Bend, and both of those are going to get me to where I want to go from San Diego out to Phoenix. But if I'm in LA, something's wrong. Or if I'm down in Tijuana, something has gone wrong. And if we don't plan for each of those steps, it's really hard for us to assess whether or not we're making progress. We can feel like we're doing a lot of work, and we're doing a lot of activity, and we're putting in a lot of cycles, and we're burning a lot of energy talking about the end and talking about the vision and talking about this thing that we want to do. But if we don't take those steps and at least get out to Alpine, and then get out to El Centro, and then get out to Yuma, then we're fooling ourselves. And that's what I aim to do with the people I get a chance to work with, is what if after every call, we want to have next logical steps. If we don't have those next logical steps, then we've got to ask ourselves, was the call really worth it? Like, did it really make sense for us to come together? Did we just spend time stirring gravy around the plate, or we actually get things done?
Right. And also being able to, like you said, from one step to the next, not go from A to Z, right? And a lot of times it comes with impatience. We already want to get there, and a lot of times it takes time. I want to take a second because we have Jeff Warren, who said, respect for the genuine interest in seeing your internal and external clients succeed in paramount to the company's success strategy.
Great
And
statement.
absolutely. Thank you, Jeff from LinkedIn, for watching. We appreciate you.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent statement. I think that for us, even pulling the team together, as a point person, I call myself point person. As a point person, it's work, and it's work in terms of I'm thinking about and then writing down, you know, what puts them in the best light, what speaks to their strengths, that also speaks to how we're going to help the client. At the end of the day, like you said, we're not just stirring the gravy. We're moving. We're eating. We're moving. We're going into the direction that we need to go through. And I think that I've and I will say this: it's hard for people to adopt something new, right? So I want you to speak on that from a sales perspective. When we start talking about map, people are like, just build me an app. And it's like, no, that's not what you want me to do. That's what everybody else does, but that's not what you want to do. Can you speak to as a quote unquote salesperson, and I'm selling what I do?
Yeah.
How do you deal with that, or where does that come from?
Yeah, well, I mean, think about any time that you've purchased something and you tell the rep, can you just send me the pricing? And then the rep goes, sure, and they put together a proposal. And I don't know what their proposal is based on. Maybe based on a bunch of assumptions. They might have gotten a little bit of information out of that first conversation. They may have guessed based on the company you're a part of, but they rush to proposal. There's so much risk. And this is why in enterprise sales and sales in general, so many organizations struggle with things like forecasting. They jump right from, I got a live one, I had a conversation, to now we're going to get married, or now we're going to get the deal done, or whatever it is. And you're like, no, you know what? Slow down a little bit. Let's ask a couple of questions. Let's gather a little bit of information. Let's get some context so that we can actually articulate the problem from the perspective of the customer, because they're the one who has the problem, not you. Now, you as the rep or you as the business owner, you might have a problem because you need to make payroll, or you need to make your number in order to hit quota and all of those other things. But that's not the problem you're solving for. If you're going to have a fair, equitable transaction with somebody on the other side, you're going to enter into a business relationship. You need to understand the problem that you're solving from their perspective. It is hard to do this stuff. And the reason why it's hard to do this stuff is because every character in the story has their own perception of the problem. My problem relative to getting healthy may be because I just don't feel good about myself when I see myself in the mirror. My problem might be relative to getting healthy. I don't like that I'm out of breath when I'm running upstairs or chasing the kids around the house. My problem might be I'm getting ready for a wedding in 3 months, and I want to make sure that the pictures turn out really good. If I just know that someone wants to lose weight, I don't understand the why behind it, or the way that they articulate it, or what it means to them, what the internal motivation is to them, then I'm really going to have a hard time helping them break through some of the challenges. Some of those challenges are going to come up are, hey, I've got to make a decision. I've got to make a decision to invest time, energy, and resource. Do I want to invest the time necessary in order to make this thing work? Do I want to invest the money necessary in order to make this work? If I invest the money, what am I trading out? What am I giving up? So that second stage has really got to be, I call it qualification. I want to qualify. I want to understand the story from the perspective of the client, the person who has the problem. What is the problem? How do they define it? Why is it important for them to solve? What's the impact of solving it? How have they attempted to solve it in the past? How might we solve it in the future? Do they agree with that? When do they need to solve it by? And what are my short-term, medium-term, and long-term objectives? So next steps in the short-term, medium-term, and long-term, so I can lay out those waypoints. And I mean, we can get into more and more detail about the next couple of stages, but once we understand that, then we can determine fit. Can we actually, if we understand the problem, can we solve it? Are we the right fit? are they the right fit? Do they believe that we can solve it? Can they afford it? Do they have or can they invest? Are they ready to make it through all the challenges, the really hard stuff that they're going to go through?
That's right.
Or do they just want to build it because, you know what, they just need to check the box and they're okay renting a helicopter to get to the top of Big Bear instead of climbing, you know, from base camp all the way up. And they might be okay with that, but now they've taken on a lot of risk. They've taken on the risk of, you know, what if they don't acclimate to the altitude? What if they feel sick when they're up there? Like there's so many of these other things that they take on that may or may not be calculated risk. And we as professionals that help people solve problems can help identify those risks. And I would say is slow down a little bit so that you can accelerate speed to impact and you can start delivering on the things that your customers are looking for. So when it comes to the app side of things, so let's make sure we're understanding the problem from the perspective of the customer. Because we already believe in the problem. We're already certain about the problem because we wouldn't be building this thing if the problem didn't exist. But you know what? I know no business owner who has ever made their number has made payroll by buying from themselves.
Good point. That's a very good point. The public has to agree that we're needed.
That's right.
That's the truth. That's the truth of it.
They have a vote.
They do. They do. They have a primary vote. They have a primary vote because they have to pay us.
That's right.
And they have to see the value. And I completely get it.
That's
Crystal,
right.
I want to make sure that I know we're a little bit over in time. Crystal, I'm going to let you finish with the final word. Crystal ball.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much, Mike, for being here today and gave us so much little nuggets of just information in this particular area what I love about you is that you make something so complex and you simplify it in a way that we can relate to it. And I definitely learned a lot from you. So thank you so much. And remember, if you want to join JVMT, you'll get not only Sylvester, you'll get me, and you also get Mike to work with, which is 3 incredible people that have done a lot in that particular area. I also have somebody else real quick saying, great conversation and insight, much appreciated. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
And to top it off, I just want to end up with saying, oh, that was Christina Rams who said that. For some reason, it wasn't showing on our end. I want to end up with saying that in 2 weeks, we're going to be back here on September 7 at 4 p.m. Pacific time with one of our great clients with an app called Private Ear that's going to be coming out. So we're going to have him here. And other than that, stay safe. Just one more thing. If you are watching us right now, go ahead and follow us on Facebook if you're watching through Facebook. And if you're watching through LinkedIn, also go ahead and follow our pages. We're trying to grow it. I would highly appreciate it. And other than that, stay blessed and stay strong and enjoy the rest of the summer. And God bless everybody.
Thanks again, Mike.
Thank you.
Take care.